Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points. And today on the show, it is your show. You guys get to decide what we are going to be talking about. All of the topics are coming by way of the mailbag. It is a Sunday. It is July 27th. I am mere days from vacation. Times are good, folks. Times are good. So let's go ahead. I'm not going to waste any time here. I have a pretty good idea of what some of the topics are. I asked for questions on Twitter and got something like 20 responses, which is always a good sign. We have a full iTunes mailbag as well that I will start with. And then obviously over the course of the show, if you guys leave any comments, especially via super comment, I will answer those as they come in as well. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and knock this show out and enjoy the rest of our weekends and you know, have a good time here. The mimosa is poured, first one of the day. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive on in. A quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button if you guys are watching live here on YouTube. If you're not watching live on YouTube, please head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Oh, Callie's hair is on my hat. Get off. No, you're not gonna. There it goes. Yeah, hit that subscribe button if you guys are on YouTube. Hit that like button if you guys are on YouTube. And if you're not, head over to youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge to find the show there. And then if you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey. And then also hit us with one of those 5-star reviews as well, as those tend to help the show. All right, we're going to start with the iTunes mailbag while the rest of the live mailbag fills up. As a reminder, the best way to get your topic on the show without having to pay for a super chat is to leave a question in the form of a 5-star review on iTunes. Those really do help the show. And, you know, we'll... Yeah, I answered those. I don't think I have ever missed a 5-star review outright. So we're going to keep that train and trend going in that right direction here. Let's see. I don't know if I answered this one. We'll start with this question. This is from no, I know I have to have answered this one, but just in case, JP 22/1. Yeah, I think I did. But anyway, JP asks, is there a possibility that Project Giannis, Jokic, or the second star blows up, especially when players like Kawhi, Clay, PG-13, and others didn't want to come, and LeBron brought AD by proxy and by proxy Luka? Also, would those aforementioned players see what is going on with Bron and alter their decision? So there was a funny moment over the last few days in that I think people are starting to kind of get a clearer picture of how this offseason played out. And Ramona Shelburne, at the time that Brooke Lopez signed with the Clippers instead of the Lakers, her initial reporting was that that decision was made because of the lack of clarity on LeBron's future with the Lakers. And I always thought it was kind of weird to like just not mention the context of he got almost twice as much money there to play with the Clippers than the Lakers were willing to offer. I'll just really quickly offer what I have on that situation, and then you know, allow that to kind of answer this question. But early on in free agency, there were rumors out there that Brooke Lopez was going to sign with the Lakers, and that's like I reported for Clutch Points that Lopez looked like the Lakers' top target on the free agent market. um, that was under the assumption that the Lakers would only have their taxpayer mid-level exception available to them. It was funny too. I was texting Darius and Pete going into free agency. I was like, "Hey, what do you guys think of letting Dorian walk and going after somebody?" And at the time, it was Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He obviously wound up signing for more in Atlanta. But um, originally, I thought the original plan going into free agency was to bring back uh, uh, Dorian Finney-Smith and then sign Brooke Lopez using the the taxpayer mid-level exception. Um, and what appears to have happened was Lopez was always going to go to the highest bidder. And when the Lakers' best offer was the taxpayer mid-level exception, Lopez's camp started working towards getting him more. And they always maintained in their kind of leaking to us idiots that, oh, the Lakers, he's going to be a Laker. You guys better watch out. He's going to be a Laker. And it like is pretty clear now at this point that the intent there was to get a few more bucks out of the team that he would eventually sign with, in this case, the Clippers. I don't think it ever had anything to do with starting or not starting. I don't think it ever had anything to do with LeBron or his future with the Lakers because, as it turns out, LeBron is probably going to be a Laker on opening night. The biggest thing with Lopez was always the amount of money that he wanted to play for this year. And I say all of that not just to kind of explain how I got the Lopez thing wrong, but well, not just to do that, but also to kind of push back a little bit on this inclination that we have, whether it's in the media or that fans have, to immediately jump to the most dramatic kind of read of a situation. In this case, yeah, sure. Ramona wanted to report that, oh, Brooke was just, he couldn't sign with the Lakers. He didn't know if LeBron was going to be there or not. And that's the most dramatic read of the situation, when the more realistic read of the situation is Brooke wanted more money. And so when we look at like this project Giannis, project Jokic, whatever, we can, I think, jump to the most dramatic read of a situation where it's like, if Giannis doesn't want to come to the Lakers, it's because he's worried about the LeBron situation, or if Jokic doesn't come to the Lakers, it's because he's worried about how good Rob is at his job or whatever. But in reality, what it probably could just come down to is Giannis is really loyal to the city of Milwaukee. He just saw a teammate of his, right, in Damian Lillard, leave a relationship like the one that Giannis has with the city of Milwaukee. Dame left that kind of relationship to go to Milwaukee, and it completely backfired on him. And then what did Dame do as soon as he had an opportunity to make a decision for himself? He went right back to Portland. He didn't title chase. He didn't do anything like that. He went right back to Portland, got himself that no trade clause, and will rehab there, right, all year. And so like if that Giannis plan falls through, it may not be because of any type of dramatic read of that situation. It might just be that Giannis is like, you know what? I won my championship here in Milwaukee. I My family is here, my roots are here, the city loves me. I might just want to be, and international players do seem to be a little bit more loyal than we've talked about that on the show. He might just say, "Yeah, I want to stay here." Jokic might just say, "Yeah, I want to stay here." And it doesn't have to be some nefarious read of the situation. It could be that the Lakers didn't get enough good intel on those players as people and their priorities. And I think that would be, I think, a fair criticism of the situation. But it might just be that those players see a better situation for themselves elsewhere. and decide that they want to stay there. Jokic has won his championship in Denver. He's an icon there forever. Why not just stick it out there? They just put a team that I think is the favorite, should be the favorite to win a championship this year, around him this summer. And if I'm Jokic, it's like, why would I leave this? Giannis, they just waived Damian Lillard for the opportunity to sign Miles Turner just to keep Giannis in Milwaukee. If I'm Giannis, it's like, they've been pretty loyal to me. I may as well be loyal to them as well. And look, it's altogether possible too that those guys say, well, playing with Luka in LA seems like it'd be pretty fun too. Who knows? But that plan, of Giannis or Jokic or whatever second star, it, to this person's point, does come with a bit of risk, and we'll see how it turns out. Now, as far as like Kawhi and Clay and Paul George, look, it's pretty clear that Kawhi wanted his team and wouldn't have his team while he played with LeBron. Paul George, right? Had the opportunity, saw the opportunity to go play with Kawhi and maybe run LA that way. That obviously backfired. So Paul George having poor instincts doesn't exactly shock me. And then Klay Thompson, that one was interesting because the Lakers technically offered more money. They his dad won championships with the Lakers. It's the city that he grew up in. It's the team that he grew up rooting for. But I believe the Lakers not wanting to promise a starting gig was a factor there. And he just, some players, some people don't want to go back home, and that's their call. So, I think it's a variety of things at play there. And as it turns out, the Lakers wind up missing out on him. But I don't know. I haven't watched Klay Thompson play in Dallas and been like, man, if only the Lakers had that guy. It's not really, it's kind of water off my back there. Next question here comes from Des Lakers 801. Thanks for all the work you put in and the honest takes you give us as fans. Thank you for following along. My question is, after getting Laravia, Ayton, and Smart for essentially free, i.e. no lost assets, one, will Rob make a big swing as far as the trade goes this season? And two, if so, who are the targets? Or I guess if so, who are the targets? Then the second question, is this offseason another example of Rob stumbling into accidental success? Thanks for taking my question. Hope you and the family are doing well. We're good. I cannot complain. My son is sleeping. So like anytime that's happening, that's a good thing. All right. So I'll start with number one. Given the direction that this offseason wound up going in, does it make it maybe more likely that the Lakers invest more assets into winning this season? I would hope so. Here's my thing. I never thought going into the summer, and I talked about this with, I believe, Jovan on his show, and then I think he and I talked about it on this show. Talked to people behind the scenes about this heading into the offseason, and talked to people around the league about this. And I always kind of maintain the stance of, I don't see Rob entering a season without the one first rounder in his back pocket to be able to tweak the roster at the deadline. He seems to really prefer improving the team at the deadline rather than in the summer. So I always thought that the Lakers would have the one first rounder. Now the question there is, if this summer doesn't go as well, if free agency doesn't go as well as it did for the Lakers, would they have spent that first rounder at the deadline compared to like now that they did have that successful free agency, landing Laravia, landing Ayton, landing Smart? I think it does improve their chances of going for it this year. Now, that said, I do think the Lakers are still going to avoid money that would be on their books beyond the term of productivity for that player, right? So I do believe that the Lakers, they called Miami about Wiggins, and they kind of kicked those tires there. And I do believe Wiggins would be a Laker right now if the Lakers had offered that first round pick for him. But I also wouldn't trade a first round pick for Andrew Wiggins. So I understand their stance there. We'll see how things go in Phoenix and if Dylan Brooks becomes available. Now, he has some money, I believe, left on his contract as well. Let me just check what his contract looks like really quickly while I filibuster a second. Where is it? The Suns. So Dylan Brooks has 2 years left on his contract. And he is 29 years old. So that's stretching it, I would say. But like if the Lakers, so a player that I've talked about this summer was Ayo Dosunmu, and if Dosunmu, if the Lakers basically made the decision to pursue Dosunmu, I do think he's somebody that they would. I think they would probably heavily protect their first round pick for him, but he's younger and they would have to basically pay him right after the season, right? He's a free agent after the season. And you're probably talking a multi-year contract with him, but he fits the Luka window. He's younger. He's going to improve. Like those are the kinds of guys that I don't think the Lakers would be that upset over having long-term money dedicated to that type of a player. I see Mike Jones. We should get Keon Ellis, right? That's another player who's a little bit younger, right? And you would probably have to. I'll take a look at his. Whoop, nope, I don't want that. I'll take a look at Keon Ellis's contractual situation. So yeah, so he's an expiring contract this year. After you sign him, you would have to turn around and pay him too, right? But he's 25 years old. He is a good defensive player at a position of need, right? Specifically point of attack. I That is somebody who, again, if the Lakers, traded for him and then they had to pay him, I don't think they would be that torn up over having to pay Keon Ellis a respectable contract at this stage of his career, right? I don't think the Lakers are basically looking to just completely wipe their books of any and all players like the Heat did when they signed LeBron and Chris Bosh in the one off season, right? They only had, I believe, Dwayne Wade and Mario Chalmers on their books when they signed LeBron and Bosh. The Lakers, I don't believe are going to operate quite that way. But if you extend Ellis with a respectable contract, that's the kind of player that you could go to Milwaukee with and say, all right, look, Giannis wants out. You're looking for any kind of value that helps you in the near future or in the maybe a little bit further out into the future. This guy's relatively young. He's on a respectable contract. Would you be interested in that player, right? And those are the types of things that I think the Lakers are going to be looking to do with whoever it is that they acquire, especially if it costs that 2031 or 2032 first round pick. So will Rob make a big swing? I would probably lean yes. I do think as we get closer to the deadline, because I think this team is going to be pretty good, especially the first half of the year. And I think the better that they look, the likelier it becomes that Rob makes a big swing. And then who the targets would be just kind of depends on what they need. I still think they need a point of attack defender. That's not Marcus Smart. He's more of a wing defender. Your point of attack defense right now is like Gabe and Bronny and Austin, I guess. So you need to improve in that facet. I would like to turn Rui into somebody who, because Rui he makes $18 million a year, and I don't really want $18 million a year coming off of my bench. I would like, if I'm going to have a guy at that cap slot, I would want that guy to be in my starting and finishing lineups. And I don't know that Rui necessarily is always going to be that. So, or at least later in the year. But yeah, those are like the types of things, like basically turn Rui and expiring in that first round pick into a 20 something million-dollar a year player, or a 30 something million-dollar a year player who, maybe you throw Dalton in there as well, but you basically turn those assets into a bona fide starter slash finisher. That's what I would be looking to do here. And then, you address depth over the course of the season as well. I do think it's going to be a pretty fruitful buyout market, and I think the Lakers need to clear up some roster spots and some salary cap space to be able to get in on that buyout market. Oh, shoot, I didn't answer the second part of the question. Is this offseason another example of Rob stumbling into accidental success? No, I wouldn't go there. Like, look, the Luka thing, I think, was the nth degree example of life just working out for good old Rob, right? Like, I like that when Nico calls you and is like, "Hey, I think I want to trade Luka Doncic," you're living a blessed life. Like, I really want to trade Luka Doncic, and I only want Anthony Davis for him. If you get that call, you go buy a lottery ticket immediately. and so, like, that's an example, I would say, of life working out well for Rob. But in this case, look, the Blazers headed into the offseason. They thought maybe, just maybe, they would be able to trade DeAndre Ayton for something. And then all of their offers came back, and they featured them having to take on longer term money that they didn't want. So they were like, you know what? We'd rather waive this guy than take on longer term money that we don't want. And so the Lakers, I think, really benefited from that. And as I've been told, the Lakers were aware that it was heading towards a buyout pretty early in that process, and pivoted pretty quickly to freeing up the flexibility necessary to pounce if and when DeAndre Ayton became available that way. And then once they saw, all right, well, we might be able to get our starting center that way. We don't necessarily have to move stuff for that starting center. They also tried to position themselves to be able to add their DFS replacement, or at least a chunk of that DFS replacement, by way of whatever money is left over from their non-taxpayer mid-level exception. They wanted to keep some of that money free so that they can go out and get a wing. They have a very good relationship with Austin Reeves' agent, who is also Jake LaRavia's agent. And it would appear that they did their homework there, and landed him with the necessary with the money that they kept open after signing DeAndre Ayton. And they didn't want to use their biannual exception on until they had a clearer picture of the buyout market. Everybody knew around the league, just by way of looking at like the number of people on their roster, everybody knew that eventually Washington was going to have to buy out or waive some of their guys. And the Lakers had their eye very early on Marcus Smart, and were able to take advantage of that situation too. So I think yeah, I think in all three of those cases, they had very good intel on the eventual availability of the guys that they signed via free agency, and were able to execute that plan. So I actually think, like, that actually is pretty reminiscent of when the Lakers struck out on Kawhi Leonard. They essentially had told, like, Danny Green was like, "Hey, look, we will pay you a couple extra bucks, a couple extra $1 million, just because you're doing us this solid here. But could you maybe wait to sign somewhere for Kawhi's decision? and if it winds up being with us, here's the offer that we're going to give you. It's more money than you're going to get anywhere else, and it's because you would be doing us this solid. And they were able to do that with him and some other guys on the free agent market, and they were able to have a very fruitful offseason that year, despite not getting Kawhi Leonard, despite not getting Paul George. They were able to have a good enough offseason to go out and win a championship. So, yeah, I would say that with how this offseason played out, I know I know I'm not the kind of guy who typically gives Rob a ton of credit, but I think in this summer, and specifically as it pertains to their free agency haul, I think Rob deserves a lot of credit there. All right. So the next one here comes from NBA Ace 21. You would not know it from the national conversation, but the Lakers now have 7 rotation players: Luka, Reeves, Rui, Ayton, Smart, Vincent, Vando, entering a prime age season from 26 to 31. It is very possible 2 or 3 of these players have career years. I would rank the impact of a career year for these Lakers as Luka, then Ayton, then Smart, then Reeves, then Rui, then Gabe, then Vando. I would swap Smart and Reeves. One, if you could choose 3 players to have a career year, who would they be? 2, who do you see? What do you see as the ceiling of the team if those 3 were to indeed have career years? So one, right, a career year for Luka is an MVP season. So that's number one. That's one guy I would really like to have a career year. I would say Reeves, no, Ayton is the second guy that I would like to have a career year. Seeing as he's the Lakers starting center, and if he has a career year there, right, that means you have a bona fide, really bleeping good starting center, who is super productive and consistently available. So he's number 2. And I'm going to go kind of out of left field here, and I'm going to say Vando. I want Vando to be that third guy. I know Reeves is probably the one that most people anticipated me saying, but I'm going to go with Vando as the guy I would like to have a career year here for the Lakers, just to get his career back on track. I just think he's been hurt a ton. He hasn't taken the steps forward that he should have skill wise. I think in part because of how often he's been hurt. One thing that kind of drove me crazy though with Vando is I remember back when much earlier in my fandom, Derek Fisher missed basically an entire season with a stress reaction or a stress fracture in his foot. And he spent that whole year basically just shooting free throws and, just nailing the repeatability of his shooting stroke. And it got better and it got better and it got better. And by the time he got back, he was a significantly better shooter, as I remember it. I haven't looked at the stats, but as I remember it, he was a significantly better shooter. Um, and I was kind of hoping, because of how much time Vando has been, unable to maybe work on his conditioning or some, do some of these things. I was really hoping that he would just use that time to figure out his jumper, because his shooting rhythm and his shooting form is just abysmal. And I was kind of disappointed because he came back and it actually looked worse. So I I would like to see him figure that out. And if basically if Vando could come back and he becomes a legitimately playable player, not just in the regular season, but heading into the postseason as well, that transforms what the Lakers are capable of, because he's a high motor guy. He is actually a good point of attack defender. He can actually guard some of the smaller, quicker guys that like Marcus Smart is going to struggle with this year. If Vando has a career year and that contract starts to look a little bit better, so that you might be able to flip it. Right now, if you wanted to trade Jared Vanderbilt, it would probably cost you like a first rounder just to flip his contract. I would say, like, if he has a career year You knock off one of the years left on his contract, and now he actually looks like an NBA player again. And, given the impact that would have for the Lakers on the court as well, that I think would be extremely impactful to the Lakers right now and their future. The next one here comes from Kush Corleone, who writes, so you see all these funny, quote, it's July, baseball is boring, quote, tweets about LeBron not speaking with new teammates yet. We got the Ayton stuff. Then right after that, he goes to Bronny's Summer League game and he talks to Ayton. Now we're getting it with Smart. While LeBron is busy listening to Kendrick Lamar in Cannes, which is like 9 hours ahead. Last summer, LeBron didn't have to do his mini camp in Vegas or wherever he does it because he was coming back from the Olympics. Are you putting any serious weight on if he does or doesn't do that camp this offseason, considering his age and how he feels about the team right now, which we don't really know if he still feels the same since the Rich Paul statements came before all these signings? Let's see, move him at all. All right. So essentially the crux of the question here, and I may as well just rope one of the questions that I got elsewhere as well. But let's see, where is it? Okay, yeah. At Ryan Lucas LA also asked, what's the deal with the picture Jokic's agent's manager posted with him and LeBron and Mav Carter talking about big plans next year? Either they're starting a league or Jokic is a Laker is my guess. Seems like the only two reasons that was posted. I mean, technically speaking, right? LeBron is really friendly with the guy who owns the Denver Nuggets, so I guess technically possible that LeBron could be angling to go to Denver next year. We also got a ton of reporting over the weekend from Mark Stein on his Substack about the future of LeBron in LA. I'm not gonna. Here's what I'm gonna do. Remember a second ago, I said that we always jump to the most dramatic reading of a situation. And I am obviously very guilty of that as well. But I wrote about the LeBron thing on my flight back from Vegas, and I think a lot of it is still the same. I don't think there's any reason for any of that to change. Here's my read of the LeBron Luka, or not. Well, I guess Luka fits into this too, but the LeBron Lakers relationship, it's been better before. Like it just has. I think he's really frustrated about the fact that, over the last 4 or 5 years or so, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know, he has felt like the Lakers have not optimized their roster for him. And they've basically been trying to keep their powder dry so that they can pivot quickly whenever LeBron departs, whether that's via trade, free agency, or retirement. And from LeBron's standpoint, the sense I get is that he's kind of been kind of annoyed with the Lakers that he has remained really bleeping good and they haven't really done anything with it. They haven't, they got to a Western Conference Finals, but that's not how he's going to define success for himself. And I just think he feels like the Lakers wasted some opportunities while he did everything in his power to remain really bleeping good and really bleeping productive, despite the stage of his career that he is at. And then they get Luka and immediately do exactly what Luka wanted. Remember, they got Luka, and Luka was like, "Yeah, I could really use a lob threat center." And they're like, "Okay, cool, we'll go trade for Mark Williams." Meanwhile, LeBron is like, "The fuck?" Like, actually, here I have the perfect reaction from LeBron, who has now been kind of pushed out the door in terms of importance on these conversations. LeBron has had thoughts on the roster for the last few years that went mostly unacted upon. Luka gets to LA and is like, "Yeah, I want a center," and they immediately go out and get him a center. And meanwhile, LeBron is like,
"What the fuck?"
He's just like, "What? Hold on. How did what? How did we get, here's another clip of his reaction to the Lakers just basically becoming a Luka Doncic organization overnight.
That's a motherfucking shot. Shit over the tree.
And look, I get it, right? Like LeBron has done everything in his power to remain really, really good, and they don't. He doesn't have enough to show for it. And meanwhile, like there's a very loud percentage of the Lakers fan base who was like, just go away because they never actually messed with LeBron in the first place. It's just, I just think the relationship between LeBron and the Lakers and LeBron and Lakers fans, it's been better before. And I think now everybody is just kind of like in that awkward. You ever been in a conversation where it's clear the conversation should have ended like 5-10 minutes ago, and you just like keep looking at your phone, or you keep kind of backing away, or you keep doing like, well, all right, well, and yet the conversation just won't end. Um, that's kind of how this relationship feels right now, where I think the Lakers would kind of like to fully embrace the Luka Doncic era, and I think LeBron would like to go somewhere where he has a better chance at winning a championship, and maybe he would be not as taken for granted as I think the Lakers have. Um, and I think everybody here is just kind of ready to move on, but they can't. Like the Lakers, you're not going to find a player as good as LeBron out there right now, so they need LeBron. And for LeBron, it's like, unless you're willing to take a minimum somewhere, and I definitely don't think he wants to play. I don't think he wants to win a championship on a minimum contract or the equivalent of a minimum contract somewhere. So I don't think he's going to ask for a buyout. So they're both just kind of stuck, and they just have to make the best of it. Now, they have some time here between now and training camp, and I do think that this team is going to be better than people think going in. I think LeBron might be taken by surprise by how good this team is next year. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is, for a while there, when the GM was more of a thing, he had contemporaries, he had peers that were still playing in the NBA. And I think the most laughable example of LeBron being really active and working with the front office, or telling the front office what to do, was that like awful season where they had like Trevor Ariza and Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook, and it was just, I think Dwight was back on the team then, and it was every game they kept on telling us about how many all-star appearances the Lakers have on their roster and how many future Hall of Famers the Lakers have on their roster. And we were supposed to marvel at that, even though we could all see all of them or most of them were washed. And, remember before that season, LeBron spent the whole summer telling anybody who was making fun of how old that roster was, oh, you can go bleep yourself. Like, I got myself a squad, all this shit. And it wound up being a laughable season because they were all old. And um now LeBron is looking around at the league, and a lot of the guys that he had more in common with, they're all retired. His entire draft class basically is retired. The draft class after him, and maybe or before him, or like those peers, like they're all gone. And it makes it really difficult to kind of scout around the league. And meanwhile, you know, the Lakers were always kind of better off not listening to some of that stuff, because all of LeBron's contemporaries, while he still wanted to play with them, were all getting old. I think Rondo was on that team too. Um, and now, like, I don't think he knows as much about Jake LaRavia or DeAndre Ayton or any of these guys at the Lakers. And they've had a solid offseason, but like, to LeBron, I'm not moved by any of those guys. So, uh, but even while he isn't moved by those guys, I think he can still be surprised by them. It kind of reminds me of, I think I've made this comparison before, but it kind of reminds me of the year that Kobe was demanding a trade, and he got to, that team that year, and they were a lot better than he thought. Remember, Kobe was demanding to play with Jason Kidd, and he was pissed that they weren't able to trade for Kevin Garnett and all this stuff. And eventually he gets there, and Andrew Bynum looked a lot better, and that team was a lot better than he thought it was going to be. They brought back Phil Jackson, and that helped a ton too. And I'll never forget it. It was after they had beaten the Seattle Supersonics that night. Bynum had a really, really good game. They asked Kobe about, hey, do you still stand by your trade demand? And he was like, no. Where would I go? I'm really happy here, and I'm really happy to just really thrilled with the way that Bynum looks. And then obviously Bynum, like very shortly thereafter, lands on Lamar Odom's foot. And you're like, damn it. We got to enjoy that for like 3 weeks. And then it's like, well, oh no, we suck again. And then they trade for Powell, and Powell plays his first game there. And again, reporters were kind of asking, hey, like, you're so good, right? You're good. And then Kobe just flat out said it. I got Powell. The fuck am I going to go? And that season was this crazy roller coaster that started with Kobe getting boos and then finished in the finals. And yeah, I wish that they would have beaten the Celtics that year, but they were banged up like the Lakers were. And then they win the championship the following year. And I don't know. I just think it's possible that LeBron comes into training camp here. They play a little bit, then they open the season. They usually backlog the Lakers schedule so that it's a little easier at the start of the year, and then it gets tougher later in the year. If they do that again, maybe the Lakers start hot. They win, 8 of 10 right from the beginning of the season. And now he's looking at this team and he's like, huh, all right, let's give this a go. I think that's as possible as it is that, I think it's more likely that happens than LeBron asks for a buyout between now and the beginning of the year. I was talking to Lakers people while I was still in Vegas, and they're indicating like, where's he going to go? And he's a free agent after this year, but it wouldn't surprise anybody if he re-signed here and retired here, even after all of this noise. So again, it's like I said at the top of the show, right? It's easy for us, especially in this social media era, or this. I remember how old I was, or I don't remember how old I was, but I remember noticing once upon a time that all of like CNN's shows and Fox News's shows and MSNBC's shows and all of these political shows, they all just basically put breaking news in the bottom left of their telecast. And it was like breaking news, and it was this thing that happened like 2 weeks ago. And the reason for that is because that's how you keep eyes on your shows. That's how if you make everything as dramatic as it possibly can be, that's how you're going to keep interest. And it's cynical, it's wrong, it's unethical. In the case of CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and those types of shows, I think they're what's wrong with society nowadays. And I just think it's easy for us in the media, because the best way to keep eyes on your content is I was laughing with this with Pete, and at some point he and I will talk about this, but I was laughing about this with Pete. I wrote an entire article that outlined why I don't think LeBron is going anywhere this year, why I think it's probably likelier that he re-signs after the season than it is that he goes anywhere after the season, or than it is that he gets traded or something like that. I wrote an entire article about LeBron probably not going anywhere. And the one thing that gets aggregated there is that he's been pissed with the Lakers for fucking around with his last 3-4 years of his career. And, shouts to First Things First for using my reporting. I appreciate it. But like, there was no mention of the fact that, like, my conclusion of that article was that LeBron isn't going anywhere. And you had all of those aggregator accounts, doing the same thing, where it's like, if you only took in my content by way of and this is how the vast majority of people take in my content. If you only followed that, you would think that I was saying that LeBron was going to demand a trade, but no, I said the opposite. So yeah, I think it's probably far likelier that LeBron retires a Laker than he goes somewhere else. Because where's he gonna go? He can't go back to Cleveland. They don't have the flexibility to be able to trade for him. He doesn't want to go somewhere on a minimum contract, because that's not why remain as good at basketball as he is if you're going to take that steep a discount. And there's no team that is going to have max cap space next year that he would want to play for, and in a market that he would want to play for, that gives him a better chance at winning a championship than he has right now with Luka Doncic. So I think, the far likelier thing is that everybody just kind of takes a deep breath. That doesn't mean that the subtweets are still going to come, right? We just saw that hilarious, image of him with Luka's agent. And it was like, this is like at Misko for Raznatovic. The summer of 2025 is the perfect time to make big plans for the fall of 2026. At King James, at Mav Carter. It could be any number of things. But again, we're all trained to jump to the most dramatic version of the story that we want to tell. They might just be talking about their businesses. It's like a combined hundreds of millions of dollars in that image. And those guys, the way that you arrive there is to make play after play after play after play and be way ahead of schedule on all of those plays. So that could just be him, repeating some dumb slogan that he heard that morning. And he was like, yeah, this works really, really well because I'm about to see this dude LeBron. So, I also find it hilarious that it's LeBron with Jokic's agent. Jokic isn't there. He, meanwhile, has spent his weekend at horse races again, doing the thing that he actually loves to do. It's all of this is really, really funny to me. And it could be that they're planning out their next steps, and LeBron and Jokic's agents are trying to find a way for them two to play together, whether it's in Denver or in LA or somewhere else. They could be putting together plans for that league that they want to build that's going to challenge the NBA, especially in Europe. They could be, look, the NBA is looking to expand into Europe, I think sooner rather than later. LeBron might be positioning himself to get a piece of that pie as soon as his career is over. That's also possible. So yeah, it's the most fun thing is to think about LeBron pushing his way out of LA, because it would get the most views on all of our content. But I think it's far likelier that he remains a Laker for the foreseeable future. He's going to be a Laker, I think, on opening night this season. He's probably going to be a Laker on closing night this season as well. And then we'll see what happens beyond that. All right, let's see here. I'll go ahead and dive into the Twitter comments. Excuse me. At G Machine 99, who also shouts to Green Machine 99 for also sending a screen grab of being subscribed to the show here on YouTube. I appreciate that. Is the roster set? Have to think the Lakers want a two-way wing, right? So one, I think it's likelier than not that this is the opening night roster. I do think the Lakers know that they need a two-way wing, and they need a quicker one so that they can defend better at the point of attack. They have one more two-way contract that they could technically hand out. Over the weekend, they announced that they signed R.J. Davis, Eric Dixon, Arthur Kaluma, and Augustus Marshallonis to Exhibit 10 deals. That's training camp stuff. And then I think they get a bit of a raise if they wind up with the G League Lakers as well, South Bay Lakers. But yeah, they right now, as it stands, they have 14 guys on their books. They have 1.1 million between them and their hard cap, so they don't have enough money to spend on a veteran minimum contract guy right now. I still believe they would like to make a consolidation trade between now and the beginning of the season so that they can get in on like Amir Coffey. I think fits in perfectly with what the Lakers need right now, but they can't sign him. They don't have the space under on their books to be able to do so. So I think they're, I would say they have another week or so before the league kind of shuts down for the summer and goes off on their summer vacations and then comes back. I would say they have like a week or so, maybe a week or two before, pencils down, not pencils down, obviously, but everybody just kind of goes and enjoys like a bit of a break and then comes back before training camp and starts having more of these conversations. And then, yeah, I mean, I think at some point this year, I think the Lakers will add, I think they will make a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-2 or a 3-for-1 trade, and then use the flexibility to go out and get, a veteran who fits better and all of that good stuff. But I think they also know, like they are down one starter. I am really excited about the Marcus Smart signing. I think he was, the best that they could have done in that market, but he's had availability issues. He has looked a little washed over the last couple of years. Like I don't know how comfortable I truly am with him being the starter. I think it's the right move to make him the starter eventually, but it makes me a little nervous given that those availability concerns. So I would like them to go out and get a starter that maybe even supplants him. And then you kind of see how the rotation breaks from there. But yeah, is it set? No, it's not set. They're still working on it, but I do think it's far likelier that this is the group that you see on opening night than they make another couple of moves between now and then. Let's go up here to let's see. At I'm just going to say Kian, who's at Interparasec24. Remember you saying months ago, good luck to anyone trying to make a podcast on the Lakers. But if so, what advice would you give to someone doing a Lakers podcast? Not even as a living full time, because that is tough if you don't have the sources. If you don't have sources, but even as a side hustle or hobby cast. I think honestly, you should start it. I mean, this started as a hobby, like I never, when I launched the Team Tank Pod back in the day, I never thought that it would eventually become a thing that would help pay my mortgage. Like and I think that is the type of content that people want to listen to more. Is more organic, genuine conversations about whatever subject matter that they're following. I think more people would prefer to listen to that. Just listen to a couple people talk about their favorite basketball team, do so with some real chemistry and with some real give a bleep. And then if it grows beyond that, then I think awesome. But as far as like, what I would do, I would just do it. I would find, I don't know if I would launch a solo pod, because I just think people prefer to listen to two people kind of riff off of each other, or you know they like, the best way that I've always tried to elevator pitch my content to people is, this is what it would sound like if you bump into me and a friend, or you just happen to like overhear me and a friend talking about the Lakers at a bar. There would be jokes, there would be dumb analogies, there would be some source information, there would be but there would be chemistry, right? And that, I think, is the starting point that all good podcasts start from, is two co-hosts who, maybe one's more entertaining, the other one is more informative, and you got the chemistry there, and it builds over years. And then, if the audience digs that, feels that organic nature of that commentary or those conversations, then they'll tell their friends about it, and it'll grow that way. And it's a slow build, it's an arduous build, There are going to be times, I mean, you just heard Pete and I talk about it the other day. There are times where I really miss just turning on a microphone and, not having to record every single day, and not having to think about ad opportunities or sponsorship opportunities, or all of these things. There are times where I just miss talking about the Lakers with friends. And that's why I love that trip to Vegas so much, is because it's just like, yeah, I get to see a lot of the people that I really care about in this industry. We just talk about sports for a little bit, and that's always really fun to me. So start with it as a hobby. And then even once it, or if it becomes monetizable, if it becomes profitable, um, try to maintain those vibes of it feeling like a hobby from that point forward, because people care a lot more about hobbies than jobs. All right. We have, we have 2 starred comments. Sorry, everybody. I have to play the most important clip on the show. Always. All right. Jason Fuentes writes, any trade before the season realistic? I wouldn't use the term realistic. I would say it's far more realistic that no trade happens. Even back when the Lakers had reason to pull off of a trade while they were trying to keep Jordan Goodwin on their team or in their organization, even then I said it was like a 45% chance that the Lakers are able to figure something out, meaning it was likelier that they wouldn't find a trade than they would. And I still feel that way. I would say, my percentage of chance that the Lakers make a trade between now and the beginning of the season at like 25%, 20% chance, I would say, maybe even lower. But I think it's, yeah, I mean, and look, by the way, I kind of look at the off season as the addiction to surgery, where I could use some Botox. I got the bags under my eyes. I would like to suction my chins so that I could go back to looking the way that I do, and pictures of me and Jen back when we were in college. And maybe you do the one thing, right? You do get the Botox, or you do, get the fat figured out in some way, shape, or form. And maybe like the one surgery that you perform, you still look a lot more like you. But the thing with like facial surgeries in particular is that you do one too many, and now all of a sudden you look like you're wearing a mask of your face all the time, and there's just no going back on that. You can't undo that. So I kind of feel like, in these off seasons, rather than kind of stop, take a deep breath and say, the Lakers got better, we always keep looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And if they did do like the one surgery too many, they make one move too many, and now all of a sudden what was a good offseason becomes a really bad one that you can't undo, then what? So I think that's kind of how the Lakers are looking at it right now, is like they did the work that they needed to do. They My hair's fine. It's ugly right now because I was working on the yard today, and then did shopping and stuff, and I've been wearing a hat. But the hair is like the one thing I'm pretty stoked about in my eyes. But yeah, if you basically, you look at this off season as you got a little jangle in your pocket, you wanted to fix the one thing on your face, and you went out and you fixed the one thing on your face, and then you start thinking, well, man, if they're able to do this, well, what if they do this? And then what if they do that? And then what if they do this? And then all of a sudden you look at your face and you're like, fuck, what happened to my face? Then you're stuck. you know, um, like then you're stuck, and you're like, oh, damn it. Now I just look like I can't smile anymore. I can't show emotion. Appetizers and sushi. I am actually hungry. Good thing is we bought steaks. I'll be cooking steaks here in a little bit. But Appetizers and Sushi writes, what would be a realistic end of the season outcome for JJ? Because so far, Darvin got us to a Western Conference Finals, and I'm not even a fan, and JJ hasn't. No excuses for Rob and JJ. Yeah, I think JJ is, Pete and I talked about it a little bit on the hook on Friday, and the JJ slash coaching, like entire coaching staff, because they didn't make any real changes to it. That is a thing that I am a little nervous about, right? I thought he had a really good regular season, so he might just have another really good regular season. And maybe he spent this offseason, examining why things went so poorly for him in the postseason, and he becomes a better coach as a result of it. That'd be great. But he has to come a long ways because of how bad that postseason went against Minnesota, or that playoff series went against Minnesota. So I agree. There are no excuses. There are no experience excuses here. There are explanations, but there are no excuses. This is a more sensible roster than he had last year. And I think he's very well set up to succeed this season. Do wish they would have improved their coaching staff a little bit. I do wish they would have gone out and gotten a better, tactical offensive guy than they do right now with Greg St. Jean, but they didn't. And the reasoning for it was that they did fairly well last year and they didn't want to mess with that. I just think you always have to be looking at improvement, and not doing that this summer in that regard is kind of annoying. And then, it makes it so that, JJ has to figure out that much more on his own. So, no excuses this year for JJ. He has to be a lot better than he was last season. But I think, I think they'll be. Look, I just think the talent is there on this roster in a way that some of the coaching questions are going to be kind of mitigated against. And look, I'll say this. I wish I was more confident in this group. I still think they're very capable of a good year, or they're very capable of growth, but I wish I was more confident in the Lakers coaching situation. And if it doesn't go well, then I would say, because after this season, I believe JJ has 2 years left on his deal, maybe 3. Let me see. JJ Redick, Lakers contract. Yeah, so he signed a 4-year deal. So after this season, he'll have 2 years left on his contract. At that point, you'll have Guggenheim resources. So, I don't think they'll blink at having to eat $16 million to improve their coaching situation. I think he's under observation this year. I think Rob is under observation this year. I think the entire Genie Brain Trust is under observation this year. And look, as we saw with Guggenheim and the Dodgers, after their observation, they made the decision to clean house, and Don Mattingly was shown the door. And like Don Mattingly was literally Mr. Baseball, and they were like, "Adios, sir." And then they also replaced the entire, overhauled the front office completely, and it was the right decision. Bringing in Dave Roberts, absolutely the right decision. Bringing in Andrew Friedman and that entire crew, absolutely the right decision. And this season, there's going to be a lot of people, and it might be why Rob finally looked a lot better at his job than he has the last couple of years. There's a lot of people who have a lot riding on the season, and JJ and his coaching staff are pretty high on that list as well, I think. Oop, back over here. And all right, we have been here an hour. I have taken up a whole hour of your guys' Sunday, and I will end it there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for all of your questions. I really, really appreciate that. Hit me with questions. The iTunes mailbag is completely empty now, so hit me with questions there. We also have the Discord mailbag, which you can delineate. You could tell me if you would rather me answer those questions on the show or in that Discord. So you can you can get it as there. Obviously, live comments here on YouTube, or when I ask for them on Twitter. And then also, I've been talking about how I'll be doing more writing with my Substack. I do plan on, I'm going to be on an airplane. Now I'm going to be juggling kids while I'm on the airplane, so I won't be as free to write stuff as I was on my way back from Vegas. But I do want to turn more of these questions that I get from Twitter into content. So I might start just taking some of the questions that I get from Twitter and answering them on my Substack, so that you guys feel heard there as well. So check out all of that stuff. Let me know. But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, please change that. Hit that like button, hit that share button. And until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Probably tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.